What's up, Mets fans? Welcome to another Mets postgame show right here on both of our channels and on X. Unfortunately for us and our New York Mets, they did not get win number 10 in a row. They lose 3-1 late in a ball game. Tough loss. They should have won this game. Severino gave them a good outing. They had opportunities offensively, but they did not get the job done. How you doing, Chris?
Yeah, I'm doing well. I could be doing better, right? This is a game that Luis Severino did everything that we said in the pregame to sort of give the Mets an opportunity to win. It was a very competent outing by him. The slider was working well, like I had mentioned in the pregame. I was looking for that slider to be established early and often. He was pumping between 96 to 98 on the fastball, changing the hitter's eye levels, and he did everything necessary to get the Mets the win. Obviously, yes, he made I wouldn't even say it's a mistake, but it was a ball that caught mostly the middle of the plate. It was a little bit more to the outside, and obviously they kind of dunked it into right field to tie the game before Reed Garrett got brought in. But that was really the story of this game in terms of the Reds getting these soft contact hits on the Mets. And it's a frustrating game. It happens. Unfortunately, the Mets winning streak is snapped, and we'll talk about it here in just a second. But I didn't like the sequence that I saw from Maton in that eighth inning or ninth inning. I didn't like it at all. So we'll talk about it. But infuriating. I'm a lot more infuriated about the Giants as we talked about before, but I'll reserve that discussion for another time. Yeah, let's just talk about this loss real quick.
Yeah, look, it's not a good win. It's not a good loss at all. The good news is Toronto did take the lead in the 11th, 3-2. So maybe we'll hold on to the third wild card, sole possession of it by the end of the day. Yeah, it was a missed opportunity, and we can get right into Maton. He fell in love with his curveball way too much. He just continued to throw it and throw it and throw it, and eventually you're gonna hang one. And what did he do? He hanged one, and they hit it to left field, and the 2 runs came in. That's what are you gonna do? He was one of the guys that I was expecting to pitch today. We talked about tomorrow with Blackburn and how many innings he might go tomorrow, where you might need a little bit more of we talked about McGill possibly, piggybacking off the Blackburn, but I think Mendoza was looking at it like these are the guys I'm going with today. And you could talk, you talked about, worry about today's game, but I mean, how can you not go to Maton? He's been really good for us, right? It was a bad outing for him, right? It was a bad outing for him. He didn't get the job done, and it also sucked because Reed Garrett pitched well as also, coming in to get that last out in the 6th, and then pitched the 7th and did a good job. So it was looking like the Mets were gonna find a way to win the ball game, somehow, some way. The offense only got 4 hits today. They didn't do nothing at all. But with the Cincinnati Reds pitching, that is not that good, and they didn't do a good job today. And it's frustrating because can we be complaining so much about 9 in a row? No, but the way I don't usually bitch and moan about the way we lose because it's still a loss at the end of the day, Chris. But I mean, it kind of took the air out of my sails a little bit after the game. Like I was like, damn, I thought we were gonna come back in the 9th, to be quite honest with you. But yeah,
Yeah.
it kind of pissed me off a little bit.
I don't know really what the approach was at the plate. I agree with Junior here. The guy had a 6.40 ERA, and we're sitting here trying to work counts. I saw a lot of lazy fly balls. Obviously, there's a couple opportunities with runners in scoring position that they didn't cash in on until Marte finally came through for the 1-0 lead. And then, I'm more concerned. Like the offense is the offense. They were lethargic. The at bats were really bad. I understand all that. I do think Aguiar, he's not good by any means, right? But I do think that his stuff, right, the movement that he has is solid and could play well for the rest of his career. He's a young guy, 23 years old. Like I said, he loves that slider to the righties, and then he has a couple of other off-speed pitches that he usually throws to lefties. But the Mets lineup, by nature of what the personnel is mostly righties, and the slider for some of these guys have been their kryptonites, and we kind of saw that today. But like I said, when you have a situation and the whole talking point, because I've seen this said on X, and I've seen this talking point floating around, like, why did we throw Edwin Diaz in a 4-run game last night? He could have been pitching today. And it's funny when you use that kind of logic in hindsight, because it's always 2020, right? You can't justify Edwin Diaz being used yesterday for this loss today. This game could have been won and should have been won even without Edwin Diaz being
Yeah.
available. That is 100% a fact. But I agree with you. I'm not going to hang my head over 9 in a row. It's infuriating and it's frustrating because obviously the Mets, the last 2 times out versus the White Sox and Red Sox, when they get those first 2 games of the series, they've been able to put the nail in the coffin, so to speak, and lock down the series sweep. But not today. I can't for the life of me understand why you use a couple of fastballs to get ahead in the count if you're Phil Maton to I
Yes.
forgot the guy that hit the double. Apologies, I'm blanking on his name. Doesn't quite matter. You're up 1 that count 2-2. I know he had 2 strikes in general, doesn't matter. He was more or less inducing a very late swing on his fastball to that hitter. It was very evident that that hitter was not comfortable with Phil Maton's fastball. The
No.
very the pitch before he hit that double, he was very late and fouled the ball back as a protective swing on a protective swing to the right field stands, right? Or the right foul line stands. And I just can't fathom why you would throw a curveball in that scenario. Why not try another fastball up to try to get a swing and miss? Because as we said in the pregame, those fastballs up have been inducing a lot of swings and misses. They
Said
really
he
have.
did it the whole game.
Yeah, and so I didn't like that sequence at all. Obviously, not really many talking points in terms of what went wrong for this game for the New York Mets because, like I said, there was not really much action for the New York Mets. It was soft hits on soft hits on soft hits for the Cincinnati Reds, and they finally pull through on that hanger that Phil Maton threw. But free passes will always kill you. They'll always come back to haunt you. The hit batsman, obviously, to start off that 9th inning by Phil Maton, and the rest is history. It's unfortunate because this was really a gem by Luis Severino. Very unfortunate that he couldn't get out of that last inning that he pitched unscathed, but it shouldn't have mattered. Reed Garrett came in, was absolutely dealing, right? Reed Garrett, the last couple of times out, has been looking like the old Reed Garrett, right, from the beginning of the season. And I know a lot of people have jumped off that Reed Garrett bandwagon, but I'm here to tell you this guy is going to be really important for this Mets bullpen moving forward. So, like I said, I don't like the progression by Phil Maton. I don't like what I saw today.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And look, Reed Garrett, you see what he did today, right? Well, what he's been doing when he's been getting better. He's kind of went away with throwing his splitter more than his fastball. When he was not pitching well, he was using his splitter way too much. And he was using his fastball. You saw the tons of fastballs he threw today, and he used that splitter sparingly, but when he needed to. And Mayton did the exact opposite. Like you sped up these guys' bats, and they did what they had to do today to hit them. And it's unfortunate because and the Braves just won, by the way, in the 11th. So the Mets are back tied with the Braves for the third wild card. So hopefully the Diamondbacks lose and we end up being in the second wild card tied with the Braves, which would be moving up in the world, but not in the way we wanted it to. But yeah, it's frustrating because it didn't feel like the Mets were going to lose today, right? We were very confident in the pregame about the Mets, and today, look, Severino did his job today. Like, and that's the other thing. Like, you got solid, really good starting pitching, and the offense. And again, if it's not Lindor or Vientos, and both of them had a tough day today, nobody else really does anything. When those guys are not constantly on base or providing the runs. And, I'm going to keep on bringing it up. Pete Alonso had opportunities in this game. He was up when there was even nobody on, his specialty solo home run. Couldn't even do that. Look bad at the plate once again. If Lindor and Vientos aren't doing all the work, it seems like these other guys like Nimmo, who's been struggling, Alonso, who's been struggling, and you can't always count on the Torrens and the Baders of the world and the Martes of the world anymore at the bottom of the order. I think that's where, you kind of see a couple of problems, especially in this game. And it's kind of glaring, even though we won 9 in a row, we won 9 out of our last 10. completely understandable. You're not going to jump off a cliff, but it was an opportunity here to stay one game above the Braves and possibly jumping over to the 2 spot in the wild card. So it's a missed opportunity. Now we got 19 games to go. And again, every day a game goes by and the Mets are still in a wild card spot is a good day, right? So as long as we don't lose ground and we can be okay because there's less games every single day. But it's frustrating today because the offense didn't show up today. The pitching was good up until Maton, and the Reds just got the best of us today and got the best of Maton. So you know what? Head up to Canada, and you got to win the series, right? The Blue Jays have been playing better. Guerrero's on another level right now. That's a guy that you just, if you can not pitch to him, that's a guy you don't pitch to. And, Toronto gave the Braves a lot of trouble. Even though the Braves did well against Toronto, it's the Toronto offense can be dangerous. So, you got to get back on the mat, get ready to go, and, put those fists up again and start fighting again because it's going to be nail biting for these last 19 games. And fortunately, we are here to talk about it every single day.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point that you made as well, going back to the offense and Ethan saying 4 hits isn't enough in the chat here. Absolutely agree with you. Daniel saying these standings are going to flip-flop on a daily basis, essentially from here until the rest of the season. I definitely agree with you. I would love if the Mets were able to gain some separation, but with how close these 4 teams are in the wild card standings, right, it's definitely going to flip-flop. So it's going to be a tight race and it's going to be exciting. Again, like, this isn't the end of the world. I'm here to talk everybody off the ledge. Hopefully, not many of you are on the ledge. This is frustrating, but the Mets have been playing great baseball through and through. I know there's going to be people out there that are going to take this loss and run with it and start panicking. That's not what we should do because this team has been playing great baseball, and a loss today does not take that away. What I will say, though, is that's a great point by you, Rob. Lindor had a very frustrating series. I'm not exactly sure what he went in the series. I believe at one point I heard the broadcast saying he was 1 for 10 in this series, and he took the 0 for 4 today, right? He has been carrying offensively this Mets team on his back, so to speak. And again, he's playing at an MVP type level. This is the Lindor that we all know, we have all come to know and love. Like, we love that. But outside of Francisco Lindor offensively, who is going to be that next guy to step up? I'm sorry, but as much as we talk about Pete Alonso as well, and he has to be one of those guys, Brandon Nimmo, who's hitting 229 on the season, has been absolutely atrocious. When is he going to step up as well? Because we always talk about this core and Lindor, Pete, and obviously Jeff McNeil's not part of the equation anymore because he's injured. But we need to talk about Brandon Nimmo. Huge Brandon Nimmo guy, big fan of his. He needs to step it up if this team is going to also take it to that next level. Both Nimmo and Pete, right? When you have these lapses in terms of the rest of the lineup, those guys need to step up. It can't just be Francisco Lindor all the time because, like you said, and like we saw in this series, Lindor's going to slump too. He's going to have a stretch of 2 to 3 games where he doesn't have it at the plate. This is the major leagues. It happens after an unreal stretch of games, right, by Francisco Lindor, right? Who's going to step up? That's my primary concern. So that's really kind of infuriating to see just the sort of stretch and the lack of help that those guys in Alonso and Nimmo have not been giving to Francisco Lindor. But again, 4 hits on the day just simply isn't enough, especially with a guy that came into the season, right, with a 6+ ERA. Obviously, very skewed with his limited sample size in this season. He only had just under 17 innings pitched. I think his stuff was good. I'm not going to make excuses for the Mets because, like I said, I will always say this, whether it's win or lose, you cannot make excuses for this team. They did not buy themselves enough leeway earlier in the season to make excuses. But at the end of the day, losses happen. Learn from this. And the next time we are in a situation in a close ball game where you see that you have a hitter right at the tip of your fingers that is susceptible to your fastball, do not throw anything slow and hang a breaking ball because that is not the correct pitch. That's my key takeaway today. But again, also Luis Torrens, great defensively today as well. Love the caught stealing that he got Ellie De La Cruz out on. Taking these positives, it's game by game. Like I said, there's really not much else to sort of overanalyze here. But I really hope that nobody's panicking. Just because we're up here talking about a loss and things that the Mets need to work on doesn't mean that this has been indicative of the last week and a half or 2 weeks of baseball from our New York Mets. It just simply isn't. They've been playing great, and let's hope they're able to put this one aside and go into Toronto and play a sound series.
Yeah, over these last week and a half, they even with the tough losses they had in San Diego and Arizona, they even when everybody questioned them after those losses, they came right back and they won a game. So look, this was a tough loss. They had opportunities. They should have won this ball game. They didn't get it done. Come back tomorrow and do the job. Win a ball game. Start the series with win number 1, and then you're on a roll yet again and have opportunities to win the series. And you're 100% right about Nimmo and Alonso, right? Lindor is going to cool off. Now, he might not, this is probably one of his worst series in like 2 months. Like, it seems like this was one of his worst series. I think it was like 1 for 11 in this series. Not very good. But again, he's not going to be, great every single game, every single series. And you need somebody else to step up, at least for a series. And that's where Nimmo and Alonso come in. It's been a huge problem. Like, Nimmo, he's basically been a ghost for 2 months. Like, that's how bad it's been. Alonso, we know his struggles. The guy can't do anything in a big spot. And, I think Nimmo basically hit 2 home runs foul today. I mean, that could have been a difference in today's ball game. Might have been a tremendous difference, right? I mean, I still believe that one was fair of today. But again, it's
how crazy is that? 2 days in a row, Rob, that's happened to Brandon Nimmo. Insane.
Yeah. And look, I'm not going to get on the umpires because that's a tough call. When it goes above the foul pole, it's not an easy call, especially when it's not at night. It's not easy to see that ball. So I understand it's not easy to try to read that ball and see if it's fair or foul. And it's basically a guessing game. And I don't expect the game to get the call to get overturned. But I was hoping for it because who knows, that would have made a big difference. At that point, it was still 0-0. It could have been a 2-0 game. And then who knows, the Mets could have won or still might have lost. You never know. But it's unfortunate. Nimmo seems like he has like one really good bad game. And he had it the last 2 nights. It just the ball went foul. He hit the ball hard. But somebody's got to step it up, right? It can't just be Lindor and Vientos, like I said earlier. Nimmo and Alonso, those are the other guys that are at the top of the order that need to get it together. Like, I'm not talking about being, outstanding or being red hot, but can you be a little bit above average? Because they're not even that right now, and it's a huge, huge problem with this team because they've been winning despite these 2 guys basically non-existent offensively during their stretch. And it can bite him in the ass, especially if Lindor cools off a little bit, which, nobody's going to turn on him if he has 2 series in a row where he's struggling a little bit when he's been hot for basically since the end of May. Like, that's how good he's been. So somebody else got to step up. We talk about next man up. Well, these guys have been up. These guys have been in the lineup. They talk, Gary Cohen today brought up Pete Alonso and Lindor play every day. Yeah, but who's shown up every day? You don't have to just put on your cleats and your glove and be out in the field. And just because you play every game means that you're going to be productive or going to be a part of those of the scoring or the winning. He's basically along for the ride right now, Pete Alonso. Like, get your head out of your ass. 19 games to go. There is no more, well, I feel like I'm doing good at the plate. No. Like, I don't care what you got to do. I don't care if you got, you got to get, Pedro Serrano from Major League and, do some voodoo magic or something. Stop shaving your beard. I said it early. Like, stop with all this nonsense. You are a power hitter, right? Stop trying to be more than what you are, because it seems like he's trying to do everything in his power to do everything else except hitting the ball over the fence at this point. That's all he needs to do. Give me that at least. And he's still not doing it consistently enough. I think he's doing it. He's hitting a home run every 14 at bats, 15 at bats. It's probably a little more than that. I think it was 15 at bats the last time I checked. That's not going to cut it for this team. That's literally basically almost 4 games of you not hitting a home run. And it hurts because he does not do anything else. He does not do anything else. It was a shocker he got an RBI yesterday. up the middle. It was a shocker. I was like, holy shit! Look, he can actually play a game of baseball. It's a huge problem, Chris, and we're not trying to bite on the negative, but it's glaring when you see your two hottest hitters in Vientos and Lindor have a bad game today, or at least with Lindor having a tough series. Like they won these last two games. It wasn't, it was kind of close the last two games. It was a little dangerous. It was a little scary yesterday, even though the Mets won the ball game. And today, nobody else can help them out. And we basically lost because nobody else did their job.
Yeah, and I don't expect any games, right, from here on out for the Mets to absolutely obliterate the opponent. I'm not. The Mets are going to be playing in close ball games. It's going to be exciting because they're going to be, for the most part, nail biters, especially against these in-division rivals in the Braves and the Phillies. And then we'll also have a Brewers series that's going to be ever so important should the Mets keep up this pace of play. But yeah, no, I agree with everything that you're saying. One thing that I also wanted to talk about, just like in terms of the complete 180, because I'm not going to fight back in terms of, or push back, I should say, on anything that you're saying, because it's absolutely factual. Those guys definitely need to step up. And it's not fair to Francisco Lindor for them to be just along for the ride, so to speak. And I see a lot of people after I mentioned Brandon Nimmo mentioning Francisco Alvarez as well. And that applies to him too. Like nobody is above criticism when they are playing poorly for an extended period of time. Slumps happen, agreed, but extended slumps at this point of the season cannot happen. Two positives that I want to take away. Obviously, Severino was fantastic. The way that he battled back in that inning, very dangerous inning for him. I believe it was first and third with 0 outs. And then he picks off the guy at first, strikes out the guy at the plate that was batting during that pickoff, and then gets the third and final out. And then we see the energy. That is the definition of a warrior out there on the mound. And these starting pitchers are bringing it every single day. And Severino, like I said, because a lot of people have been kind of jumping on and off the Luis Severino train because of the inconsistency that we've been seeing. Yes, he has hit his max innings limit in terms of what he's done over the last couple of years, but he is still pitching great. The fastball velocity that a couple of months ago, maybe a month or two ago, everybody was so concerned about. Guess what? He's at 96, 97, 98 miles per hour right now. This guy is here, and he is going to be good for the Mets over the next stretch of games going into hopefully postseason play. So I wanted to sort of alleviate any sort of confusion about my stance on Luis Severino. I'm here standing 10 toes behind Luis Severino because he has shown me more than enough this season. And this should have been a win for him had the offense showed up. But also, it's great to see Harrison Bader as well, utilizing the opposite field. He had half of the Mets hits today at 2, right? Like 2 of the 4 hits were due to Harrison Bader. Obviously, he had the opposite field home run to get things going yesterday, and he had an opposite field hit today as well. I forgot exactly where his second hit of the day today went, but it doesn't matter. Good to see that from the bottom of the lineup. Like we are and have been used to, right? When the Mets are playing well, very, I guess, very evenly distributed results from this lineup from top to bottom. And it has flip-flopped a little bit through the season, right? At one point in the beginning of the season, the bottom of the lineup was obviously carrying the top of the lineup. Then it kind of flipped 180 where the top of the lineup was carrying the bottom of the lineup. And then most recently, I think everybody top to bottom has been doing at least a fair job and their fair share. Obviously, that is always going to be lopsided toward the top of the lineup because Mark Vientos and Francisco Lindor are there. But like I said, we need guys to start getting hot at the right time. That's what the Mets need. And I still think that we are missing a couple of those guys. Alonso, Alvarez, Bader before these last couple of games that I just mentioned, Nimmo. Like these guys, it's kind of a miracle that these guys are performing the way that they have been, and the Mets are still 9-1 over their last 10. So can you imagine when those guys get rolling? I'm not saying that every single one of those guys that I just mentioned are going to get hot at the same time, but if you get one of those guys, two of those guys involved regularly, and especially with what Vientos and Lindor are doing at the top of the lineup, this lineup becomes infinitely more dangerous, even more dangerous than we always talk about this Mets lineup already being. We always talk about the opposing pitchers coming into a game and kind of worrying about the Mets lineup. Obviously, today was a different story, but you can tell the way pitchers throw and kind of, I guess, what their methodology is and what their thought process is in terms of how they utilize the attack plan against the Mets offense. They're not going to try to leave anything over the middle heart of the plate, even in counts that are like 2-1, 3-1, because they don't want to make the mistake. The Mets offense will make you pay. They want to live around the corners, as does everybody in the MLB, right? I understand that 100%, but you can kind of tell when it gets down to it. The opposing pitchers, there is a little bit of timidness in terms of how they approach these Mets bats. Now, again, it didn't work out today. I'm fully expecting this Mets offense to be okay because they have been producing runs, right? They have been doing their part. So, like I said, no harm, no foul. Obviously, this is a very infuriating game. Again, not going to make any excuses because a day of Braves team winning means that the Mets presumably should be winning as well. But baseball just doesn't work out that way. We're in for a long ride, even over these next 19 games. I can't help but say it again. Like, Mets fans, we wanted to be in this position, right? We were all complaining weeks ago, or even when the Mets went down 4 games in the loss column or in the games back column after that Edwin Diaz debacle in Arizona. We were all complaining. Zach Scott, former GM, just all of a sudden went on Twitter saying that probably puts a nail in the coffin in the Mets playoff hopes. But this team keeps on fighting back. And that's one thing that we should expect from the New York Mets. And that's exactly what I'm expecting after a loss like today. On the road, starting a new series tomorrow, bounce back. Put the fists up, like you just said, Rob. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, 5-1 homestand, pretty damn good, right? It just ended on a sour note. But again, there's no reason why we should question this team after a bad loss, right? Until they don't do it, I'm gonna have confidence in tomorrow, and I believe Chris Bassett is on the mound for Toronto tomorrow. So we're going to see a former Met, and Bassett has pitched well against the Mets. He didn't pitch against them a lot, but when he has, he pitched well. So that's going to be something that we're going to actually look forward to tomorrow because it's going to be 19 games to go. Like there's not a lot of games left, guys, and every loss is going to be. It just feels bigger, right? It feels like 19 games. It feels like it's going to take about 30 years. Like it's every inning, every pitch is just going to feel like a grind. And look, we all asked for this, right? We all asked to be in this moment, to be a team that has playing meaningful games in September, and not only meaningful games, they're in a playoff spot right now, tied for the 3rd spot. The Braves and the Mets might be on the tied for the 2nd spot if the Diamondbacks lose. So we might actually jump a spot up with the Braves just by the Diamondbacks losing, as we're a half a game behind them along with the Braves. So it's not, again, if we end up that way, I think that helps us a little bit, considering the fact, like, all right, the loss hurts, but it didn't completely kill us. Again, if Arizona wins, then, we're still in that 3rd spot, and, we'll be trying to hold on to that 3rd spot. But, yeah, they just got to come out and play well tomorrow, right? I forgot. I think Blackburn's pitching tomorrow, so we'll see. Again, we talked about Blackburn. How far is he going to go? How good is he going to be? He hasn't pitched in, 2 weeks now? So, who knows? How sharp is he going to be? I think he has to. I think Mendoza has to have a quick hook with him, Chris. I don't know your thoughts with that, but I think you got to have a quick hook. You can't let this game get out of hand early on with Blackburn. And you know what? It might be Tyler McGill coming into the ball game to piggyback McGill, piggyback Blackburn, like you said in the pregame. So again, look, Toronto is dangerous offensively. They can beat you. Like they're around that. They're around that average team that were supposed to be much better. They remember they spent a ton of money. They've made big trades over the last 2 seasons, and they very much underperformed, and they're home. So not going to be an easy series. This is a team that should be better than what they are. Just don't look at the record and say, oh, Toronto's a bad team. No. Look at the roster. Look at the players on that team, right? They've just underperformed. That does not mean that they should have been a much better team, right? They should be in talks like the Mets are in talks when it comes to a playoff race. They're not. They're still a dangerous team. Just don't look at the record saying they suck, because they really don't. Their lineup is good. They got a very good pitching staff and pitching rotation. So don't take this Toronto Blue Jays team for granted, even though I don't think the Mets will. But some fans seem like they're taking Toronto for granted. And that's a dangerous game to play with a team that should be better than what their record says.
I'm not taking any opponent for granted, me personally speaking, to be honest with you, because you saw exactly how today ended up with the Reds beating the Mets, right? We said it again. This wasn't a series that the Mets kind of just steamrolled over the Reds, right? I mean, there was some efficient games. I mean, yesterday was pretty efficient as efficient gets, really. But you know, they have a couple of guys in that lineup like Ellie De La Cruz that are dangerous. Obviously, Spencer Steer and just a couple people spread through their lineup. And then you see how today ends. Like, nobody should be taking any opponent lightly. It doesn't matter if it's obviously the Braves or the Phillies or if it's the Washington Nationals, who also have a couple of young guys that have been called up as well with them being out of contention. So these teams, they're not playing for anything in terms of the playoffs, but they're playing to beat the New York Mets, right? You know what I mean? Like, this isn't football where you're going to just tank the season. These games, they're still showcasing themselves. Just like a DJ Stewart came onto the scene last season where the Mets were out of contention and he went on a tear. Other teams are going to have these players that can do damage against you because they're playing, right? Maybe not for the playoffs, but they're playing for their next contract or they're playing for a starting position for next season. And they're trying to open some eyes within their own organization. So, yeah, 100%. I definitely agree with you. It's going to be a tough series, but you know what? I'm sorry. I know a lot of people loved him in this organization when he came over, and I was a fan of him when he was here. With the way that he left and some of the remarks that he made about New York, I want to beat Chris Bassett very badly, right?
Yes, true.
I want to beat Chris Bassett really badly. He shied away from New York, right? He threw up a couple of dud games to end the season in 2022, and then he kind of just dipped out. And then he had some not so, I wouldn't say that they were like, obviously they weren't bad, right? I'm kind of over exaggerating here, but let's just say that he wasn't the biggest fan of playing in New York, right? That's kind of what I got from his comments. So how awesome would it be for the Mets to just stick it right to him, right? Again, probably a great guy, but that left a sour taste in my mouth in terms of the way that he left. And I would like nothing more for the Mets to go out there to Toronto and beat him with his new team. So that's it. Nothing more than just to do it. That's really it at this point. I have basically nothing else to say. Again, not the end of the world. Let's see how the Mets bounce back, but I do have full confidence in the Mets bouncing back. And I appreciate you all in the comment section here. Loyal fans, we're here to talk about obviously wins, but we are not going to shy away from the losses. And we are here to provide you all some post-game content in losses as well. So please hit that thumbs up if you are in this stream. And roundtable tonight. I guess we won't get into the Blue Jay series too much right now because I guess we'll do the roundtable later and kind of preview that series if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, roundtable going down tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, look, we all want to beat up on Chris Bassett. He said some words even before that, the game 3 of the wild card series. It seemed like he talked a built-in excuse prior to the game with his pre-game interview, and it kind of just unraveled. And he pitched the worst 2 outings of the year in the biggest outings games for the Mets. So look, I'd love to beat him up. We'll see. He got like 37 pitches he throws, so it's not going to be easy. He's going to throw a lot of junk up there, and we know a lot of the Mets like to swing at junk. So you got to be patient. You got to let him get that ball over the plate, and then hit that ball. Beat his ass. Get him out of the game early. See what Blackburn gives us. Again, I'm not really guessing what Blackburn's going to give. I don't really know. I really don't. He's been out for a couple of 2 weeks. I'm just not sure. All I know is the offense better come up and be ready to go because it's probably going to need a lot of runs scored tomorrow to win that ball game in Toronto. So, Chris, you had your final words in regards to just get a win. Got to do what you got to do. We'll beat up on Chris Bassett. We'll see you later tonight on the roundtable at 7:30. Me, myself, Hector, and Hayden, all 4 of us will be there on the roundtable. Obviously, we're going to talk about this game in this series and this Mets homestand. By the end of the day, the Mets at the very least are going to be a 3rd wildcard team, possibly the number 2 wildcard team with the Braves if the Diamondbacks lose. So worst case scenario, tied with the Braves for the 3rd wildcard. Best case scenario, tied with the Braves in the 2nd wildcard. And we'll talk about the Toronto series on the roundtable. And of course, our thoughts and opinions from all of us on the roundtable. So, with that said, guys, thank you for tuning in to another Mets postgame show right here on both of our channels and on X. Before you go, guys, hit on that like button if you haven't already. And if you're on X and you haven't subscribed to the channels, go over to YouTube, please, on the link that you already see on X and subscribe to both of our channels so you can watch other shows during the rest of the season and hopefully into the playoffs. So, Chris, you have a great day. Sorry about your Giants. It was a rough one all around for you today, but it's not over yet with 19 games to go, and I have confidence in this Mets team. 78-65 is the record. Third wild card right now. We'll see how it goes. Have a great day, guys. Let's go Mets, and we'll see you on the roundtable. See you later tonight, guys. Let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets.
Meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life because the Mets